Hey everyone, so fall is right around the corner. I think the first official day of fall is actually next week. And I don't know how, but all of a sudden it's here and I feel like it came by very, very quickly. So I love the fall season. I love the summer too. But when it comes to makeup, I love the type of makeup looks I tend to prefer during the fall. Obviously, you can wear whatever makeup look you want no matter what the season is. But during the fall, I love like golden shades, coppers, warm tones, and bold lips. So I can't wait for fall makeup. I wanted to share a couple of my favorite palettes for the fall season. I love filming this video every year. So I have a couple of new palettes that I think are worth checking out if you do want to add a new palette to your collection, but the majority of these are older. So there's a good chance you have a lot of these in your collection. Hopefully this video can inspire you to shop your stash, maybe pull out some of your older favorites and just use them and enjoy them. I've really been into eyeshadow again lately, which I'm excited about because for the majority of the year, I wasn't super inspired by eyeshadow palettes, but these days I've been loving it so much. I love just sitting down, doing my eyeshadow, and I just enjoy the process. So let's jump into it and I'll share a couple of my favorite palettes with you guys. Okay, let's start with this one. This is the newest palette that I've tried recently, but this is a gorgeous palette for the fall season. It's the Tarte Maneater After Dark palette. So I just filmed a video using this. I did 2 different looks. I haven't tried a Tarte palette in years. I want to say it's been at least 5 years, but I'm thinking maybe closer to like 6 or 7. It's been a really, really long time. But when I saw this online, I was instantly drawn to it. And to me, this is like the perfect fall palette. It has everything in it that I would want to create an eyeshadow look. So for me, I love to wear shades like this during the fall. I mean, this is one of the prettiest golds I've ever tried. And then you get a couple of cooler tones. I love this row of berries because I also really love berry toned eyeshadow during the fall as well. If I'm not wearing like a golden warm copper eye, I'm wearing something like this. So for me, this is really the ideal fall palette and the quality is so good. It's a little bit more of an expensive palette. It's $52, but you get a lot of shadow in here and the quality definitely matches the price point. One of my complaints lately is that a lot of high-end brands charge high-end prices, but the quality isn't there. That's not the case with this one. These are some of the best shimmers I've tried in a really long time. It's very intense, very vibrant. The matte shadows are a little bit softer. They're more of a buildable formula. So they start off a little bit softer, but as you build them up, you get more pigmentation. And it's a really easy palette to work with. Very blendable, very beginner friendly, I would say. So if you struggle with blending eyeshadow, this is a great option. There's a little bit of fallout with the shimmers, but nothing too intense. I also read a ton of comments from you guys saying that you love this palette so much. I don't think I actually read one comment from someone saying they hated it. So I do think it is a really gorgeous option if you're drawn to these shadows. I like that you get a mix of everything. I'm a fan for sure. I think this is going to be my favorite palette for the fall. Another new palette I've been loving is this one from LA Girl. This one is a lot less expensive than the Tarte palette. It's under $20. It's called the Sunkissed Glow. And again, it's a little bit of a larger palette, but it's a true warm toned neutral palette. So if you aren't a big fan of like pops of color, if you don't want the berries that you get in the Tarte palette, and you just want kind of like an easy everyday option, I think you'll really enjoy this one because it's very easy to work with. It's also really easy to create complete looks using this. You really can't mess up your eyeshadow when you reach for this because the shadows coordinate really well together. And if you want something really light and soft, you can go in with like this half of the palette. If you want something mid-toned, you can reach for these. But if you want something really dramatic, it definitely has some deeper, darker, smoky tones as well. It's just laid out in a way that's very easy to understand. So if you're someone who gets kind of intimidated by larger eyeshadow palettes or you don't always know which shadows to pair together, this one is a great option because you can just go in with one of the rows and you'll have a complete look, which I think is really, really nice. The mattes are a little bit softer, but they do have quite a few deeper shades. So you can definitely pull those in for a more dramatic look. And the shimmers are very intense, really vibrant. I've been reaching for this one a ton lately. So I really like LA Girl's eyeshadow formula, and I hadn't tried like a staple neutral palette from them. A lot of the LA Girl palettes I have are really colorful, which can be fun, but if you're just looking for an easy go-to palette for everyday wear, this one is really nice. I think I have a video using this as well. Any videos where I've used the palettes, I'll link in the description so you can see them in action. If you're looking for a new palette, but these palettes are just a little bit too big for you, I totally get it. I've really been a big fan of mini palettes over the last year, and I recently picked up the Natasha Denona Mini Bronze. This one is so perfect for the fall season. It's definitely one of my favorite Natasha Denona palettes of all time. And it's funny because I usually prefer her shimmer formula, but the mattes in here are flawless. They are so incredibly easy to work with. They're a little bit more pigmented than the mattes found in the other two palettes I just mentioned. So you can definitely build them up fairly easily. And if you want a lighter, softer look, you can use a lighter hand, but it's a very easy palette to work with. So it comes with 4 matte shadows and 1 shimmer. You can definitely do a very soft, easy, everyday look, or you can pull in the deeper brown for something a little bit more smoky toned. And for me, this is just like a good staple everyday fall palette. When I don't know what to do and I don't want to reach for a really large palette because I'm in a hurry and I don't want to feel overwhelmed by choices, this really is the perfect option. I also love using these mattes with the Natasha Denona Midi Bronze palette as well, which of course I do have to mention in today's video because this is my favorite eyeshadow palette of all time, but especially for the summer and the fall. If we tend to like very similar colors, if you love golden shades and coppers and bronzes, I think you'll really, really like this one because it just has everything that you could want for like the perfect warm-toned eyeshadow look. I feel like I mention this in my favorite fall palettes video every single year because for me, this is the ideal fall palette. Now, if you do like matte shadows, this one doesn't have a ton of mattes in it, but I feel like it has all of your staple matte shadows. And then again, having the mini bronze has been nice because I'll use it, let me open this one up. I'll use it alongside of the mid-sized bronze palette, and I feel like they coordinate really, really nicely together. I mean, when you look at these, they do look slightly repetitive, I would say, but I feel like this kind of fills in the gaps this one is missing. The shimmers in this palette are definitely the standout for me. I think some people don't really love this one because they say it's a little bit repetitive, which I totally get. If you're looking for more variety, you might want to go with the Tarte palette over this one, but if you just like a nice mid-toned warm eyeshadow look, you can't go wrong with this because it's so stunning. The shadows look amazing on the eyes. It's very, very effortless to use, and I don't know, it's just been my favorite after all these years. I mean, I guess it hasn't been that many years. This probably came out like 2-3 years ago, but I love it and it's absolutely worth the money in my opinion, especially for summer heading into fall, even the holiday season because of the gorgeous golds. Now, if you're looking for like that warm toned eyeshadow look, but you don't want to spend the money on a Natasha Denona palette, again, I totally get it. This one from ColourPop is a gorgeous option for fall. This is the Lucky Penny palette. I think they might have launched this one last year, but I just recently added it to my collection because again, I'm really drawn to these shadows and I love ColourPop's formula. It's perfect for everyday wear. So I'm wearing this one on my eyes today. The only thing is I have a ColourPop Super Shock shadow all over the lid in the shade Lightning Bug, which is a really pretty gold, just to add like an extra pop to the eyes. So this one comes with 5 matte shadows and then 4 shimmers. And this is such a good formula. I feel like these days ColourPop's formula does differ a little bit palette to palette, but this is like their staple blendable smooth formula. The mattes blend out in 2 seconds. The shimmers are really rich, really intense, but they're not glittery. So if you don't want glittery eyeshadow, I know my look is a little bit glittery today. That's definitely due to the Super Shock shadow, but if you just want like a smooth, seamless shimmer, this is perfect. I think this is definitely an underrated option. I know they have so many palettes at this point, but if you like warm tones, like if that's your thing, you will get a ton of use out of this one. So I'm glad I tried this one out. It's definitely a great option if you're looking for a new palette, but you want something a little more affordable. Another one of my favorite ColourPop palettes for fall is this one. This one is It's a Mood. It is the most stunning palette for fall. If you're not just into like warm toned neutrals, but you want to mix, especially a mix with colorful shadows, this one is perfect because obviously you get your warm tones right in the center, but you also get beautiful, intense, colorful shades. And again, I love the way this one is laid out because it's just very easy to work with. So if you want to do a complete green look, you can just reach into this row, a complete blue look, you get it, same case all the way across the board, but it really is so easy to work with. This one does come with 3 pressed glitters, so if you don't like the pressed glitter formula, that is something that I just wanted to note, but you get a ton of shadows in here, and this is one of like the staple colorful palettes that I still reach for over and over just because I know it performs well and it's laid out in a way that's very easy to understand. So in my mind, this really is like the most ideal fall palette because you get such a good mix of neutrals, but also those pops of color as well. The last ColourPop palette I wanted to share in today's video is the Rock Candy palette, which again is one of their larger palettes. I know I've been sharing a lot of warm toned eyeshadow palettes, But during the fall, I also love cooler tones, especially like a good cool toned smoky eye. I feel like that is so fun for the fall. I also love pinks and berries. So this one is really nice because, again, you do get a lot of great options in here. And if you prefer cool tones, I think you'll really enjoy this one. They have another cooler toned palette on their website called, what is it called? Oh, Stone Cold Fox, which is like a completely cool toned neutral palette. But the reason why I like this one is because you get a few pops of color. They're very, very subtle, colorful shades, but you get like a couple of pink tones in here, and then you have everything you need for a dramatic, dark, gray smoky eye. This kind of strikes me as more of what I would consider like a winter palette, but late fall, whenever I'm feeling like those cooler toned smoky shades, this one is perfect because you get such a wide variety in here. So I wanted to mention this one as well. If you love those cooler toned pinks and berries, you can't go wrong with the retro palette. I kind of go back and forth as to whether I would consider this one of my staple fall palettes or one of my staple spring palettes. But I think it just goes to show you could really use this any time of the year. It really is a gorgeous option. What I love about this palette is the shadows look so smooth on the eyes. This has a lot of like cream to powder shadows in it, which are kind of intimidating to me because I don't work with a lot of formulas like that, but they look really good on the eyes. They're actually easier to work with than you would think. I just kind of use more of a stippling motion and it creates the most smooth, blurred, beautiful effect. And then you get some really gorgeous shimmers in here, a lot of staple mattes. I think there's a good variety of shadows in here. For being kind of like a cooler toned berry palette, you do get a couple of shadows that pull a little bit warmer on the eyes too. I think after the Natasha Denona bronze palette, this is my next favorite just because it looks good every single time I use it. And whenever I use this palette, I feel like I get so many compliments on my eye look. So I wanted to mention this one in case you don't go for all of the warm tones and you want something a little cooler, maybe a little bit softer on the eyes. This one is kind of like the best of both worlds in my mind. It's the Natasha Denona, no. It's the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude. It pulls a little bit warm toned, a little bit berry. If you like warm eyeshadow, but you don't want anything as intense as I was sharing in the beginning of this video, this is a really nice option because you get all of your staple neutral shadows, but you also get really pretty berry leaning shimmer shadows. When you combine those with the neutrals, you get the most beautiful combination. And there's so much you can do with this palette. I really think there's such a wide variety of shadows. And obviously, you know, in this half, you do get a lot of like typical brown shadows, but there's just something about the shimmers in here that are so interesting and unique that they completely transform your look. I also like having all of these staple neutral matte shadows because I can do something a little softer or a little more intense. This for me is like the perfect late fall palette as well because you can do something a little more dramatic. You can pull in those deeper browns and really smoke it out, and I love this. It's a little bit of an older palette. I was kind of late to the game on this one, but if you have this palette, definitely pull it out for the fall season. You will love it. Every single time I use it, my makeup turns out perfectly, and I always think it looks a little bit different every time I use it. Also, if I'm wearing this in a video and I tell people that it's the Naughty Nude palette, a lot of people are like, really? Because on the eyes, it just, again, it's so stunning, so interesting, and when you look at it in the pan, it looks kind of like your basic neutral palette with a few pops of shimmer, but I'm telling you, it is so pretty. So if you already have this one, definitely pull it out and start using it. If not, it's a good older palette to consider trying. Another older staple that I love that I always go back to is the Persona Identity palette. I've had this one for years. I actually had an older one, and then this is, like, they repackaged it, and this is newer to my collection, but I had the original one ever since they launched it. So this comes with 12 gorgeous cooler tone shadows. So a lot of people comment on my videos and say, like, neutral palettes just aren't neutral palettes these days, and they have like pops of color. Even though they're considered neutral, they don't really pull neutral on the eyes. If you're looking for a true neutral palette, this one is perfect. I mean, if you take out like these bottom two shadows, it's as neutral as you can get. But it's also nice to have these because you can add a little bit of warmth with this one, or you can add a pop of color with this one. But otherwise, I feel like some people might consider it slightly underwhelming. I consider it a true staple because you can create all kinds of neutral looks using this, whether you want something a little softer or a little more intense, you can reach into these, and the formula really is beautiful. Persona creates so many gorgeous products, but I feel like their eyeshadow palette is kind of underrated because I think it was it the first product they ever launched? I think it was the first product they ever launched. I know this year, you know, cheek products and complexion products, they're having their moment, but I'm telling you, their eyeshadow palette is definitely still worth trying in 2022. I put the Urban Decay Naked Wild West in my everyday makeup drawer last time I filmed that video, which it's been a while. I need to film an updated one, but I still love this. I don't know if this is my favorite Naked palette or Naked Honey. I kind of go back and forth because I love them both. But if you're someone who really enjoys Urban Decay's formula and you haven't tried this, I think you would really enjoy it because you get such a good mix in here. And I know some people look at this and they don't really get it because it looks like they took warm tones and cool tones and they couldn't decide if they wanted it to be neutral or colorful, but that's why I love it so much because it kind of inspires me to try different color combinations, which is not something I would expect from an Urban Decay Naked palette, but these shadows look gorgeous together. Like I've taken this color and the gold and that creates such a pretty look. And I never would have thought to do that if I was just reaching for other palettes. So I really enjoy using this. Obviously it's Urban Decay's Naked formula, which isn't for everyone, but I think it's a very effortless formula to use. You know what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get shadows that are really blendable, a little bit softer, a little powdery, but fairly easy to work with. Also, I feel like this palette goes on sale quite a bit, and I feel like the Naked palettes in general go on sale a lot in November, so it might be worth grabbing while it is discounted if that's the case this year. If you already have it though, it really is such a fun option for fall to kind of incorporate those cooler tones and those warm tones together. The last palette I want to mention is kind of like an honorable mention palette because I don't necessarily think this is worth the full price tag just because there are some inconsistencies, but if it does go on sale during the holiday season, or if you have some Ulta points, or you can use a coupon or get it for a discount during the VIB sale, then I think it might be worth trying. It's the Too Faced Better Than Chocolate palette. So I did do a review on this. I also did a video using it. And the thing about this one is I think it's expensive for what you get. I believe it's $52, $54. Unlike the Tarte palette, which is the same price point, this one is not as consistent as a whole. The majority of the shadows in here perform really nicely, and you know, it's the typical Too Faced chocolate bar formula. I do think it's a little bit better than it's been in the past, but there are some shadows in here that aren't great. This purple right here, this blue's a little bit patchy, this purple up here. For the most part, like the pops of color in here are not great, and the rest of the shadows are really good. So that's why I hesitate to recommend it, because for that price point, I expect all of the shadows to perform really, really well. But again, I know a lot of people love the Too Faced chocolate bar palettes and that formula. So if that is you, then you might be a big fan of this one. I think the colors are perfect for the fall, but the main shadows in here, the neutral shadows, like the staple shadows you'll be wearing a lot, are really, really good. So I do like this. I reach for it quite a bit. I've been using it a lot, and I always like how my look comes together. I would just prefer to recommend buying this palette at a discounted price and not paying full price for it because, you know, the rest of the palettes that I mentioned in today's video are really consistent, and this one does have like a few shadows that aren't great. So that's why I wanted to mention it at the end as like an honorable mention. If you love those palettes, for the most part, I think you'll really enjoy it. I would just recommend waiting until you can get it for a discounted price. Okay, those are all of the palettes that I wanted to share in today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for being here. I'll link a couple of my other recent videos on the screen if you guys want to check them out. I definitely plan on doing a couple of other fall related videos, so I hope you guys will subscribe so you don't miss them, and I'll see you guys very soon with a new one. Bye.